My name is Elizabeth Warren. I'm 55 years old. At 6:43 on a Thursday evening in March, my brother's wife threw my suitcase off the porch and watched it split open in the rain. Not an old suitcase. The blue one my late husband bought me for our 25th anniversary. The one with the brass tag, still engraved EW, in tiny careful letters. It hit the brick walkway on its side, popped open, and spilled my folded sweaters, medication bag, slippers, and the framed photograph of my mother into a shallow puddle near the hydrangeas. My sister-in-law Marissa stood at the top of the porch steps in her cream cardigan and gold hoop earrings, one hand on the doorframe of the house I had helped buy, and said, "Elizabeth, you have become a burden this family can't carry anymore." Behind her, my brother Daniel stood in the hallway, not looking at me. That was the part that hurt worse than the rain. Not Marissa's voice, not the suitcase. Daniel's silence. I was 55 years old, recently widowed, holding a grocery bag with chicken broth, bananas, and the tea Daniel liked for his acid reflux, while my belongings soaked on the front walk of the house whose down payment had come from my savings, whose property taxes I had paid twice, whose roof repair I had financed after Daniel lost his job, and whose deed still carried my name. The porch light flickered above Marissa's head. Rain slid down the gutters in silver ropes. My coat collar was wet against my neck. A passing car slowed, then continued down Hawthorne Drive, because neighbors always see just enough to gossip and not enough to intervene. Marissa crossed her arms. "We packed the rest of your things in trash bags. Daniel will put them in the garage when he has time. You need to find somewhere else tonight." I looked at Daniel. "Is that what you want?" He rubbed one hand over his face. "Liz, don't make this harder." I almost laughed. Harder, as if I had arranged the weather. As if my clothes had thrown themselves into the rain. As if grief, money, loyalty, and betrayal were just inconvenient details standing between Marissa and the open-concept living room she had been measuring for new furniture. I did not scream. I did not beg my brother to remember who sat with him through bankruptcy court, who signed documents when no bank would touch him, who moved in to help after his surgery, who slept in the downstairs guest room so he and Marissa could pretend the house was theirs alone. I just bent down, picked up my mother's photograph from the puddle, wiped rain from the glass with my sleeve, and counted 7 seconds. What they didn't know was that the eviction notice had already been filed. Not against me, against them. And what Marissa really did not know was that the moving truck she had scheduled for her new sectional, imported dining table, and custom bedroom set would arrive the next morning to remove her furniture instead. Because the house on Hawthorne Drive was still in my name, and kindness, once legally exhausted, becomes paperwork. This is that story. Before I tell you how my brother's wife learned that throwing a woman's bags into the rain does not erase her name from a deed, tell me where you are watching or listening from, and what time it is there. I always wonder who hears stories like this while remembering the moment someone they helped called them a burden. And if you connect with stories about women who were betrayed, underestimated, used, and quietly took their power back, like and subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. Some women do not fight in the driveway. Some women let the trucks arrive. I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in a narrow brick house with green shutters, a small back garden, and a kitchen table that seemed to hold every family decision before anyone admitted a decision had to be made. My parents, Harold and June Warren, had 2 children. Daniel was older by 3 years, handsome, impulsive, funny, and forgiven before he apologized. I was the younger one, steady, practical, observant, and told from childhood that I had an old soul, which was a gentle way of saying adults found my reliability convenient. Daniel broke things. I repaired them. Daniel missed deadlines. I remembered them. Daniel borrowed money. I made budgets. When we were children, he would charm my mother after every disaster. Broken window, lost bicycle, failed math test, car dent, late rent, bad investment, worse girlfriend. There was always an explanation, and Daniel always delivered it with damp eyes and both hands open. My mother would sigh and say, "Your brother just needs a little help getting back on his feet." By the time I was 30, I had started to wonder whether Daniel's feet had ever touched the ground long enough to count. Our father died when I was 28. My mother lived another 17 years, most of them in the same brick house, increasingly dependent on me and emotionally dependent on Daniel's occasional visits. I married a quiet man named Peter Morrison at 31. He was a high school history teacher, gentle and precise, the kind of man who labeled spice jars because he said future confusion was preventable suffering. Peter never liked how my family treated me. He did not say it often, he just noticed. When Daniel forgot Mom's birthday and I drove over with flowers, pretending they were from both of us, Peter said, "Liz, love does not require forgery." When Daniel asked for money after his first business failure, Peter said, "Help once, document always." When my mother said, "Your brother is sensitive," Peter said later, while washing dishes, "So are sharks." I miss him every day. The symbolic object in this story was a brass house key. Not the key to Hawthorne Drive, an older one. The key to my parents' brick house, the one my mother pressed into my palm after Dad died. "You're the responsible one," she said. I was 28, exhausted from funeral arrangements, probate paperwork, utility transfers, and comforting Daniel because he said Dad's death made him feel unmoored. I remember looking at the key in my hand and feeling proud, trusted, needed. I did not yet understand that being the responsible one can become a lifelong sentence if nobody ever asks whether you consented. After Mom died, Daniel and I inherited what remained equally. The brick house sold for less than we hoped because it needed wiring, plumbing, and roof work we had delayed for too long. After debts and expenses, each of us received $94,000. I put most of mine into savings. Daniel put his into a restaurant franchise opportunity with a man named Kurt, who wore shiny shoes and used the phrase, "fast casual revolution." 16 months later, the restaurant was closed, Kurt had vanished to Arizona, and Daniel owed more than he admitted. That was when Hawthorne Drive entered the story. Daniel and Marissa had been married 4 years by then. Marissa was 42, attractive, organized, and ambitious in the way some people are ambitious with other people's resources. She worked as a boutique interior consultant, which meant she had exquisite taste and unstable income. She believed poverty was mostly a failure of aesthetics. Their rental lease was ending. Daniel's credit had collapsed after the restaurant failure. Marissa wanted, quote, "a real home." Daniel called me one Sunday afternoon and asked if he and Marissa could come over. Peter had been gone 8 months. I was still moving through grief like a woman underwater. The house felt too quiet. My own dining table had become a place where bills waited and casseroles from neighbors went cold. Daniel knew that. Maybe he did not use it consciously. Maybe he did. That is one of the hardest parts of being used by family. Sometimes they do not plan the manipulation. They simply recognize which door is unlocked. They arrived with a folder. Daniel did most of the talking. "We found a house," he said. Marissa placed photos on my table. White colonial, blue-gray shutters, big kitchen. Finished basement, 4 bedrooms, a porch. "It needs updating," Marissa said, as if the house had personally insulted her. "But the bones are beautiful." I looked at the price. $412,000. I almost laughed. "Daniel, you can't qualify for this." His face fell. "I know." Marissa leaned forward. We were thinking creatively. That phrase should be printed on warning labels. Their idea was simple, according to them. I would help with the down payment and cosign. Temporarily. Just until Daniel repaired his credit. They would pay the mortgage. I would not live there. I would only be on paper until they could refinance. Peter's voice came back to me. "Help once. Document always." So I said no at first. Daniel cried. Not dramatically. Quietly. Which was worse. He said he felt like he had failed as a husband. Marissa said she had been praying for stability. My mother's ghost sat at the table whispering, "Your brother just needs help getting back on his feet." I agreed to meet with an attorney before making any decision. That saved me. The attorney was Helen Park, a real estate lawyer with silver hair, sharp glasses, and no patience for family fog. She reviewed Daniel's credit, Marissa's income instability, the proposed mortgage, and my savings. Then she looked at me and said, "Elizabeth, if you do this, do not co-sign. Buy the house yourself or do not participate." Daniel looked offended. Marissa looked insulted. Helen continued. If your money is the down payment, your credit secures financing, and your risk carries the property, then your name stays on the deed. They can live there under a written occupancy agreement and pay monthly costs. If they refinance later and buy you out properly, ownership can transfer. Daniel said, that makes it sound like Liz is our landlord. Helen looked at him. Better than making her your unsecured lender. I should have stopped there. Instead, I compromised. I purchased the house in my name, using $70,000 from my inheritance savings as the down payment. Daniel and Marissa signed an occupancy agreement prepared by Helen. They would pay monthly mortgage amounts directly into a property account. They would cover utilities, ordinary maintenance, and insurance reimbursements. They had no ownership interest unless and until they refinanced and purchased the home from me at agreed terms. If they failed to pay, damaged the property, or attempted to exclude me from access, I could terminate occupancy under the agreement. Daniel signed with embarrassment. Marissa signed with a smile that did not reach her eyes. It's just temporary, she said. It lasted 9 years. For the first 2, they paid mostly on time. They invited me for holidays. Marissa asked my opinion on paint colors, though she ignored every answer. Daniel called the guest room your room, which made me feel included and uneasy at the same time. Then Peter's death became useful to them in a new way. Liz, Daniel said one evening, this house is too big for you to sit alone in that townhouse. I still lived in the townhouse Peter and I had shared. It's not too big. You know what I mean. You could come stay with us for a while. Family should be together. Marissa added, and honestly, it would help us too. Daniel's back surgery is coming up, and I have client meetings. You're so good with practical things. Practical things, medication schedules, insurance forms, cooking, driving, laundry, mortgage reminders. I moved into the downstairs guest room temporarily after Daniel's surgery. At first it felt like family. I cooked soups. I drove Daniel to physical therapy. I kept the house running while Marissa worked. I paid the mortgage from the property account when Daniel forgot to transfer money. I covered shortages because I told myself repayment would happen later. Later is where family debts go to die. By the 4th year, the lines had blurred. Daniel and Marissa called Hawthorne Drive our house in public. Marissa hosted dinner parties where she accepted compliments on her kitchen, though the kitchen renovation had been paid partly from the property maintenance account I funded after she insisted resale value mattered. Daniel told neighbors he and I went in together, which was inaccurate enough to be flattering to him and dangerous to me. When I corrected him once, privately, he snapped. Do you need everyone to know you own it? I said, I need us to know. He softened immediately. I'm sorry, I'm stressed. That apology worked because I wanted it to. The first major conflict came over the roof. A storm damaged shingles on the backside. The insurance deductible and repairs cost $8,600. Daniel said he could not cover it because his work hours had been reduced. Marissa said all her money was tied up in client samples. I paid. Marissa later told a neighbor, we decided to invest in a better roof. The second conflict came when Marissa's mother moved in for 6 weeks after knee surgery, and I was relocated from the guest room to a sofa bed in the finished basement because Marissa said, Mom needs real space. I said, this is my house. Marissa's face changed. She said, wow, I wondered when that would come out. Daniel begged me not to make things tense. I slept in the basement for 43 nights. The third conflict came over furniture. Marissa had expensive taste, and as her interior consulting business struggled, she began staging her own life more aggressively. She ordered custom drapes, designer lamps, imported rugs, and a dining table that cost more than my first car. She said clients needed to see her lifestyle authority. Daniel said it was business development. I said, you are 2 months behind on the property account. Marissa looked at me across the kitchen island. Elizabeth, you live here too. Maybe don't act like you're doing us a favor every time money comes up. I stared at her. I bought the house. She smiled coldly. And we made it a home. That was the sentence that stayed. Because in her mind, money was crude, documents were rude, and taste transformed ownership. By then, I had grown tired, in a way sleep did not fix. I was 55. I worked part-time as an office administrator, for a medical supply company. I had a modest widow's benefit, some savings, and a life that had shrunk around keeping peace in a house I owned but no longer felt welcome in. Helen Park had retired, but before she did, she introduced me to her colleague, Jordan Ellis, a younger attorney with the same steady eyes and more digital filing systems. I met with him after Marissa changed the alarm code and forgot to tell me. That was the first legal warning. "She changed access to your property?" Jordan asked. "Yes, but she said it was accidental." "Was it?" "No." He reviewed the occupancy agreement, payment history, maintenance records, tax records, and my bank statements. Then he said, "Elizabeth, they are not tenants in the traditional lease sense, but they are occupants under contract. They have defaulted repeatedly. If you want them out, we can begin formal termination and eviction proceedings." The word eviction made me feel sick. "That's my brother." Jordan nodded. "And you are his sister, not his collateral." I did not file immediately. Of course I did not. Women like me rarely use the legal remedy the first time it becomes available. We warn. We explain. We hope the paperwork can sit quietly in a folder and never be needed. I sent Daniel a written notice instead. Not legal eviction yet, a cure notice. Past due property account contributions. $14, $200. Unauthorized access changes. Failure to reimburse roof deductible. Household conflict. Daniel came to my basement room holding the letter like it was a snake. "Liz, why would you do this?" "I need things documented." "I'm your brother." "I know." "Then talk to me." "I have been talking for years." He sat on the edge of the sofa bed and cried. I almost apologized. Then I remembered the roof, the basement, the alarm code, the house tours, where Marissa called me Daniel's widowed sister who stays with us. Stays with us, in my own house. "I need you and Marissa to catch up or make a plan to leave," I said. Daniel wiped his face. "I'll handle it." He did not handle it. Marissa handled me. Her campaign began subtly. She stopped buying groceries I liked. She moved my tea from the kitchen cabinet to a plastic bin in the pantry. She told guests I was very particular. She began leaving real estate listings for senior apartments on the kitchen island. One morning she said, "Elizabeth, have you ever thought about independent living communities? Some are very nice now." I was 55, not 87. "I own this house, Marissa." She sighed. "Legally, maybe. Emotionally, you're holding us hostage." There it was, the emotional inversion. My asset had become their captivity. My boundaries had become cruelty. My presence had become burden. I called Jordan that afternoon. "File it?" I said. He asked, "Are you sure?" "No." He paused. "That is honest." "File it anyway." The formal notice of termination was served 2 weeks later. Daniel avoided me for 3 days. Marissa stopped pretending. "You are unbelievable," she said in the kitchen, holding the notice with red nails that matched the expensive mixer she had bought instead of paying the property account. "After everything we've done for you." I looked around the kitchen. "What have you done for me?" She laughed. "We gave you family." "No, Marissa. You gave me chores." Her face hardened. "You lonely women always do this. You attach yourself to other people's lives and then punish them for wanting space." That sentence should have made me leave the room. Instead, I stayed. "You have 60 days, I said. She leaned over the island. "You think Daniel will let you throw us out?" I looked toward the hallway, where Daniel stood listening and saying nothing. He already has. That was the first time I saw fear in her face. The next month was war in soft clothing. Marissa told relatives I was evicting them during a financial hardship. Daniel told people it was a misunderstanding. Cousins called me. An aunt from Ohio left a voicemail saying your mother would be ashamed. I forwarded everything to Jordan. The eviction filing proceeded because they neither paid nor vacated. Then Marissa ordered furniture. That was the absurd part. 3 weeks after being served, she ordered a custom sectional, a marble-topped dining table, 6 velvet chairs, a bedroom set, and 2 antique-style cabinets from a luxury consignment warehouse. I knew because the delivery confirmation accidentally came to my email. Years earlier, I had created the household account for a dishwasher replacement, and Marissa never changed the email. Delivery date, Friday, March 15th. White glove moving service included. I forwarded the confirmation to Jordan. He replied, "Interesting timing. I did not understand." Then he called. "Elizabeth, she is bringing significant new furniture into a property she has been ordered to vacate?" "Yes." "Do you want me to contact the moving company?" "For what?" "To advise them of the pending removal and your ownership of the premises. Depending on how the court timing aligns, it may be cleaner for those trucks not to unload." "Jordan?" "Yes?" "I don't want drama." His silence was kind, but firm. Drama is already there. We are deciding whether it gets documented. The court hearing was set for the following Monday, but because of the agreement violations and access issues, Jordan had filed an emergency motion for possession. The judge granted a preliminary removal order effective that Friday morning if they had not vacated voluntarily. A sheriff's civil officer would attend to keep the peace while movers removed unauthorized property and supervised access. I did not tell Daniel he had received the court notices. He knew. Whether he read them was no longer mine to manage. Then came Thursday evening. Rain. Groceries. Suitcase. Marissa on the porch. "You have become a burden this family can't carry anymore." The blue suitcase hit the walkway. Daniel stood behind her. I looked at him. "Is that what you want?" "Liz, don't make this harder." I bent down and picked up my mother's photograph. Then I did the most difficult thing I had done in years. I did not go inside. I did not retrieve the rest of my things. I did not argue. I took photos of the suitcase, the wet clothes, the trash bags visible through the garage window, Marissa standing on the porch, and Daniel in the doorway. Then I called Jordan. He answered on the second ring. "Elizabeth?" "She threw my bags outside." His voice changed. "Are you safe?" "Yes." "Do not enter. Do not engage. Where are you?" "In the driveway." "Go to the hotel we discussed." "I didn't book it." "I did." That made me cry. Just one sudden tear before I could stop it. He continued, "You have a room under your name at the Hampton near the courthouse. Go there. I am emailing the photos request now. Tomorrow morning, be at the property at 8:30. Sheriff's officer arrives at 9. Movers at 9:15. "Movers?" "Yes. Her delivery company has been notified not to unload. Your removal movers are scheduled instead." I looked at the porch. Marissa had gone inside. Daniel had closed the door. The house glowed warmly through the rain, as if it had not just expelled me. "Okay," I said. I put my soaked belongings into the trunk, drove to the hotel, and sat on the bed in my wet coat for 20 minutes before taking off my shoes. At 8:05 the next morning, I stood in the hotel bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, and put on lipstick. Not because I felt strong. Because Grandma Warren used to say, "If you must face wolves, do not look like lunch." At 8:43, I arrived at Hawthorne Drive. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained low and gray. My blue suitcase sat in the trunk. My mother's photograph lay on the passenger seat, dried but warped slightly at the corner. I parked across the street because I did not trust myself in the driveway yet. At 8:57, a sheriff's vehicle pulled up. Officer Grant stepped out, a broad-shouldered man in his 50s, with tired eyes and a respectful voice. Jordan arrived 2 minutes later with a folder, a tablet, and a calm expression that made me want to sit down and sleep for a year. At 9:12, 2 moving trucks turned onto Hawthorne Drive. One white truck from Marissa's luxury consignment delivery company. One blue truck from the removal company Jordan had arranged. They arrived nose to tail like a punchline written by the courthouse. Marissa opened the front door wearing yoga pants, a cashmere wrap, and the expression of a woman expecting furniture. Then she saw me. Then the sheriff. Then Jordan. Then the second moving truck. "What is this?" she demanded. Daniel came up behind her, pale and unshaven. Jordan stepped forward. "Mrs. Warren is here to take possession of her property, pursuant to the court order served on March 8th and effective this morning. Officer Grant is present for civil standby. The blue truck is here to remove personal property belonging to occupants. The white truck has been instructed not to unload new furniture into the premises." Marissa looked at Daniel. Daniel? He said nothing. That silence again. But this time it did not hurt the same way. This time it belonged to her. Marissa pointed at me. You did this because I asked you to leave? I looked at her. No. I did this because I asked you to pay, then asked you to plan, then asked you to leave legally, and you threw my belongings into the rain. Her face flushed. You were living off us. Jordan opened the folder. Mrs. Warren owns the property. She funded the down payment, mortgage, taxes, major repairs, insurance shortfalls, and documented maintenance expenses. The court has reviewed the occupancy agreement and default notices. Officer Grant said, "Ma'am, we're not here to debate ownership. We're here to keep this peaceful." At that exact moment, the white-glove delivery driver approached with a clipboard. Delivery for Marissa Warren, sectional, dining set, bedroom suite. The timing was so perfect that even Jordan looked briefly toward the sky. Marissa lifted her chin. "Yes, bring it in." Jordan turned to the driver. "No items are to be brought into this property. Here is the written notice sent to your company yesterday and acknowledged at 7:48 this morning." The driver checked his tablet. "Oh, yeah, I see the hold." Marissa's mouth fell open. "What hold?" He looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, we can't unload into a property under removal order. Dispatch said we either return to warehouse or deliver to alternate address." "I don't have an alternate address." Nobody spoke. The sentence stood there, dressed in all its truth. Officer Grant said gently, "Ma'am, you'll need to step aside so the removal team can begin." Marissa turned to Daniel. "Do something." Daniel looked at me. For one dangerous second, I saw my little brother. The boy with scraped knees. The teenager who forgot lunch money. The man crying at my kitchen table over a house he could not buy. "Liz," he said. I shook my head once. "No." One word. It felt like turning a key in a lock I had finally learned belonged to me. I need to pause here for a second. If you have ever helped someone until they mistook your help for weakness, you know exactly what that driveway felt like. It was not about furniture. It was not about bags in the rain. It was about a woman finally refusing to be evicted from her own life by people she had carried. If this story is hitting close to home, leave a comment and tell me what moment made you stop explaining your value to people living inside your sacrifice. And if you have not already, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. The quiet part is over. The removal took 6 hours, not because the house was huge, because Marissa argued over everything. That lamp is mine. That mirror was a gift. That rug is custom. That cabinet belongs with the room. Jordan had prepared inventory categories. Personal items belonging to Daniel and Marissa were removed. Fixtures and improvements attached to the property stayed. Items purchased with property funds stayed pending review. Furniture Marissa owned could leave. Furniture not yet delivered could not enter. The white truck waited for 47 minutes, while Marissa called the warehouse, cried, yelled, then finally directed them to return everything to storage. I later learned she lost a delivery fee and had to pay restocking on 2 pieces. That was not my revenge. That was logistics. At 11:30, Mrs. Keller from next door came outside pretending to water plants that did not need water. She looked at me, then at the trucks, then at Marissa's velvet chairs being carried out. "You all right, Elizabeth?" she called. Marissa snapped. "This is private." Mrs. Keller smiled. "Not with 2 trucks and a sheriff, dear." I nearly laughed. Daniel avoided me most of the morning. He packed tools, clothes, files, and the framed photo of him and Marissa at the beach. At one point, he stood in the kitchen holding a mug I had bought him after his surgery. It said, "Back on my feet." He looked at it for a long time. Then he placed it on the counter. "I guess this is yours," he said. "No," I answered. "It was a gift. Take it." He looked at me then, eyes wet. "Liz, I didn't think it would get this far." "That is because you thought I would stop it before consequences reached you." He flinched. "I'm sorry." I wanted to believe the apology fully, but apologies offered during removal are often grief for lost comfort, not harm done. So I said, "I hear you." Nothing more. By 3:20 the house was half empty. Not empty enough to be clean, empty enough to tell the truth. The living room looked larger without Marissa's staged pillows and oversized coffee table. The dining room echoed. The guest room where I had once stayed was full of dust outlines and forgotten hangers. My basement sofa bed remained, stripped bare, under the small window where I had slept while owning the roof over everyone's head. Marissa stood in the foyer holding her purse. Her face had gone hard, in a way makeup could not soften. "You are going to die alone in this house," she said. Officer Grant looked up sharply. Daniel whispered, "Marissa." I looked at her calmly. "No," I said. "I almost lived alone in it while you were here." That was the last thing I said to her that day. At 3:40, Daniel and Marissa left. No dramatic door slam. No final speech. Just the blue truck pulling away with their life inside it, and the white delivery truck long gone with the furniture she had expected to make the house more hers. Jordan handed me the keys. Technically, I already had keys. But Marissa had changed locks more than once, copied keys, withheld codes, and treated access like power. Jordan had arranged a locksmith who arrived at 4. When the new lock clicked into place, something inside me loosened. Not healed. Loosened. That first night, I did not sleep upstairs. I slept in the living room on an air mattress because the bedrooms smelled like other people's claims. I ordered soup, placed my mother's warped photograph on the mantel, and sat in the quiet house listening to the furnace hum. The house did not feel triumphant. It felt exhausted. So did I. The aftermath was not clean or quick. Daniel stayed with a friend for 2 weeks. Marissa went to her sister's apartment, then to a short-term rental she described online as a peaceful reset after family toxicity. She posted a photo of a candle, a mug, and a caption about choosing environments that honor your nervous system. Mrs. Keller printed it and slid it into my mailbox with a sticky note that said, "For your attorney or for laughs." I used it for both. Marissa tried to challenge the removal by claiming she had an equitable interest in the property because she had, quote, curated and improved the home. Jordan responded with the deed, mortgage records, bank statements, occupancy agreement, default notices, court order, and photos of my suitcase in the rain. Her attorney stopped using the word curated after that. Daniel called me 9 days after the removal. I did not answer. He left a voicemail. "Liz, I know I messed up. I don't know how to fix this. I should have stopped her. I should have paid you. I should have told her the truth about the house. I'm sorry." I saved it, not because it fixed anything. Because documented remorse is still documentation. The family reaction split exactly as expected. Aunt Carol from Ohio left another voicemail, softer this time. "I didn't understand the arrangement. Daniel made it sound like you all bought together." I sent her a copy of the deed. She replied, "Oh." That was the entire message. My cousin Michael texted, "Heard you threw Dan out." I replied, "The court removed occupants from my property after default and unlawful exclusion." He did not respond. Precision often discourages gossip. Marissa's sister called me cruel. I blocked her. That felt wonderful. Over the next month, I repaired the house. Not for resale at first. For reclamation. I had the carpets cleaned, then replaced the basement carpet entirely because it held years of damp, dust, and quiet humiliation. I repainted the downstairs guest room a soft blue, the color of my old suitcase before the rain darkened it. I changed the alarm code. I replaced the mailbox because Marissa had chosen a black modern one that never matched the house. I took down the oversized abstract art in the dining room and found pale rectangles underneath where sunlight had not touched the wall. A house remembers. So does paint. In the kitchen, I found a drawer full of takeout menus, expired coupons, and one old birthday card from Daniel to me. "Liz, thank you for always being there. Don't know what I'd do without you." I stood there holding it for a long time. Then I placed it in a folder labeled "Before," not because I wanted to punish myself, because I needed to remember that love and use had once worn the same handwriting. Daniel came to the house 6 weeks later for a scheduled meeting with Jordan present. Marissa was not invited. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table Marissa had claimed made the room look more cohesive, though I had paid for it during the renovation. Daniel looked thinner. He placed an envelope on the table. I started repayment. Inside was a cashier's check for $2,000. The past due amount was much larger, but it was the first payment he had made without being cornered. I looked at it. "Thank you." He nodded. "I'm moving into an apartment." "Good. Marissa and I are separating." I said nothing. He swallowed. She says I let you ruin us. I looked at my brother. What do you say? His eyes filled. I think I let her treat you the way I was already treating you quietly. That sentence mattered. It did not repair everything. But it was the first one that did not hide behind Marissa. I needed you to say that years ago, I said. I know. No, I said. You are beginning to know. He nodded. We discussed a repayment plan, retrieval of remaining property, and boundaries. He gave me back the garage remote. He agreed in writing not to enter without permission. He gave Jordan a forwarding address. At the end, he looked around the kitchen. I miss Mom. That old door opened, the one he had always used. Grief, family, memory. I felt it pull at me. Then I remembered my suitcase in the rain. I do too, I said, but Mom's key is not a lifetime pass to my house. He closed his eyes. That's fair. Fair, a word I had heard rarely and late. By summer, Hawthorne Drive had become quiet, in a new way. Not empty. Quiet. I planted herbs in the kitchen window. I put Peter's history books in the built-in shelves. I hung my mother's photograph properly in the hallway after replacing the warped mat. I brought the blue suitcase to a repair shop, but the man said the frame had bent too badly. I kept the brass luggage tag. EW proof that something can be damaged and still keep your name. For a while, I considered selling the house. Jordan said I could. Financially, it made sense. The market was strong. The house was larger than I needed. Too many memories had happened there, not all of them mine. Then, one evening in August, Mrs. Keller came over with tomato plants and stood in the kitchen doorway. You know, she said, this house looks relieved. I laughed. Houses don't get relieved. She looked around. Don't be so sure. I kept it. Not forever, necessarily, but for then. I turned the basement into a real guest suite, with a bed, lamps, warm rugs, and a small writing desk. Not because I wanted guests immediately, because the room where I had been diminished needed to become a room where someone could rest with dignity. I made the downstairs guest room my office. I placed Peter's framed note above the desk. Help once. Document always. Beside it, I placed the brass luggage tag. EW. My initials. My reminder. Marissa's furniture never returned. I heard she tried to get the warehouse to refund everything by claiming family emergency displacement. They gave her store credit minus fees. She posted online about betrayal, then deleted it when someone commented, "Is this about the house you didn't own?" I do not know who wrote that. I hope Mrs. Keller. Daniel and I speak now, but carefully. He repays monthly. Sometimes on time. Sometimes 2 days late with apology. Jordan receives the payments, not me. That boundary saved our remaining relationship from drowning in old habits. Daniel visits for coffee once every other month. He rings the doorbell. He waits to be invited in. He compliments changes without calling them ours. The first time he said, "Your house," I had to look away, not because I wanted to cry, because I wanted to believe him. Belief, after betrayal, should not be rushed. Marissa signed the final settlement regarding property removal and waived any claim to the house. She did not apologize. I did not expect her to. Some people would rather lose access than admit they never had ownership. 1 year after the rain, I stood on the front porch at 6:43 in the evening. Same time. Same brick walkway. No suitcase. No shouting. No Marissa. The hydrangeas had begun to bud again. The porch rail had been repainted. A new brass lock gleamed on the blue front door. In my hand, I held the old luggage tag from the broken suitcase. EW rain clouds gathered, but the storm had not started yet. Daniel had sent a text that morning. I know today might be hard. I am sorry for that night. I am sorry for all the years before it too. I read it once, then I wrote back. Thank you. Keep paying Jordan. That may sound cold. It was not. It was honest. Forgiveness without boundaries is just reopening the door before the lock is fixed. The final lesson of this story is not that deeds matter more than family. It is that family should never require you to erase the deed to your own life. I helped my brother because I loved him. I bought a house because I wanted him safe. I moved in because he needed care. I stayed because I believed patience would become gratitude. But patience became expectation. Gratitude became entitlement. Entitlement became abuse. And one rainy evening, my suitcase landed in the mud because Marissa believed my kindness had made me removable. She was wrong. My brother's wife threw my bags into the rain. Then the moving trucks arrived for her furniture. And when the white delivery truck drove away empty, while the blue removal truck carried out the life she had staged inside my house, I finally understood something Peter had tried to teach me years before. Love can open a door, but ownership decides who has the right to close it. Thank you for staying with me through this story. I know some of you have helped families so much that they started treating your sacrifice like their property. Maybe it was a house, money, childcare, caregiving, emotional labor, or years of being the responsible one. If Elizabeth's story reached you, I hope you remember that compassion does not require self-erasure. A person who calls you a burden while living inside your generosity has already received more than enough. Subscribe to Ultimate Revenge for more stories about quiet women, family betrayal, silent comebacks, and the proof that finally arrives with paperwork. So tell me, if someone threw your bags into the rain from a house still legally in your name, would you argue on the porch? Or would you let the moving trucks answer in the morning?